Is
We were
what?
talking about Javon Hargrave earlier. The Niners just gave him a ton of money because they decided a few years ago that as long as they have the most expensive defensive line, they'll be good. I feel like the trend's going the other direction in the NFL now. What do you think? The state of the D line.
Well, I mean, okay, so this is a trend that you know is that's been defining characteristic of the 49ers for multiple regimes. I mean, going back to Pierce Holt, Kevin Fagan, Michael Carter, Dennis Brown, Ted Washington. Going back to multiple regimes, the Niners have always believed strongly in a strong defensive line. But God, man, you went the last decade watching some of these quarterbacks take you know, a three-step drop or not even a three-step drop and the ball's coming out. I mean, if you want to, you can neutralize a really, really dominant rush by just getting the ball out really fast.
Mhm.
So, and we've seen Breeze do it. We've seen Mahomes do it. We've seen
Purdy
a
do
lot of
it.
quarterbacks do it. Brady, where
Purdy.
you can't sack the quarterback anymore because you can never really get to him because it's kind of like the Chiefs in the Ravens in the AFC title game. Um, you know, the thing about Baltimore is that you can't sack Lamar not because he's so fast, it's because he never takes a deep drop. They're just everything's coming out quick, short passes, runs, quarterback runs, and so he's taking like 3 7-step drops the entire game. He's taking like 3 5-step drops the entire game. So then it's hard to sack the quarterback when they don't take a 5 or 7-step drop and give you an opportunity. So I
Also, the
kind of
big
wonder if
trend
that's
in
the
the
way to go.
NFL, the big trend in the NFL right now is simulated pressure, which is
Right.
you have 7 or 8 pass rushing threats around the line of scrimmage on any given play. You're only going to rush 4, but the offense doesn't know who's rushing and who's dropping. And a lot of times with Baltimore last year, they would drop their nose tackle into coverage just because the offense wouldn't be expecting it. So you don't have to have Nick Bosa and a defensive tackle making 21 million a year and a defensive tackle making 18 million a year and Chase Young. You can have washed up Jadeveon Clowney and revive his career because you have all these. You're scheming up the pressure. You're not just asking 4 guys to win their one on ones.
And you're seeing players who play non-pass rush positions who are all they do is rush the passer. So like Devin White of Tampa Bay, he's an inside linebacker, but all he does is delayed blitzes, and he gets home. Jamal Adams, he's a safety, a strong safety. Maybe he's a weak side linebacker. All he does is shoot the gaps and blitz the quarterback, and he's really a pass rusher. And if you look at the numbers of sacks in the NFL every year for like the last 5 or 6 years, the number of sacks that are coming from defensive linemen, tackles or ends goes down, and the percentage of sacks that are coming from defensive backs or linebackers go up. So it's just you're right. Now it's like they're going to rush 4, but what 4? And can you
Exactly.
figure out which 4 are coming and who's dropping and which direction to slide your line? And the coordination of your protection is huge now because guys they're gonna rush 2 linemen and 2 linebackers, and next play they're gonna rush a corner and 3 D linemen. And it's like you got to be able to figure out who's coming from where, what angles, and what time.
Right. And so you can scheme up the pressure on the one hand, and 2, offenses are really leaning on the quick passing game more than ever. So what is the upside in over investing in the defensive line? It seems like if that's the trend in the NFL right now, that what you want to do is invest in your back 7, not your front 7, because your pass rush is almost like Mike McDonald is going to be in charge of that. It's going to be as effective as he is creative in Seattle. The pass rush was winning in the Super Bowl for Kansas City because Spagnuolo was out coaching Kyle, not because George Karlaftis was taking Colton McKivitz to the shed. It wasn't like that. I mean, now Chris Jones was dominating, but other than that, it was a lot of schemed up pressure. And, the Niners can call as many 5 wide quick passes as they want to try to get away from that. But that's the game now. So you need great DBs, 5 of them, and 2 really good linebackers who can cover.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, And it was like that's kind of one of the reasons I'm sure the Niners were so attracted to Hargrave, because
Yep.
they looked around and said, well, you know what, run stuffers are kind of, we especially in this wide nine get up the field, we want 4 D-line pass rushers, because we saw the Eagles a couple years ago win the Super Bowl with basically every guy in their line could rush the passer. And now it's like you see it, like when the Niners played Dallas and they had Jonathan Hankins, whoever was blocking Hankins would just drop inside and combo block somebody else and just kind of let him go because he was so not going to rush the quarterback. So now those days of having that two-gapper monster run defender who's just a gigantic wide body who can't run at all, that guy almost doesn't really have a role anymore. It's like if you put that guy out there, they're just going to let that guy go by himself and take the center who's going to block him and just have him combo block somebody else.
Yeah, it feels like the Niners signed Javon Hargrave because they wanted to get back to what their defense was. You just kind of like set it and forget it. You 4 guys rush straight and win, but that's not where the league is going anymore. I bet they would undo that signing if they could. I mean, right now it should be it'd be Nick Bosa, and they really shouldn't be spending very much for any other defensive lineman. They should treat that D line like they treat the O line, and have cost effective people on it.
I think this is it for Hargrave. I think he'll play this year, and then he'll be done.
I agree.
This will be his final year, so we'll see. I mean, he's talked about being in better shape. I mean, my God, you're getting paid a king's ransom. You couldn't get in shape, but he's.
I feel for Steve Wilks. I'm sure Steve Wilks is somewhere fishing, being like, man, freaking Javon Hargrave wasn't in shape, and Nick Bosa wasn't there for the offseason. They blamed me.
Chase Young played 3/4 speed, and so did Givens. And
they gave me Chase Young. He's a dog. Like what was I supposed to do?
Yeah,
and we were third in points given up.
And they got rid of 6 of our best run defenders, and then blame me because we couldn't stop the run.
I'd be mad. I'd be salty. But
I will say this one thing about Wilks is I think when I've talked to Kasarik 2 years ago, that Kasarik dialed up the games up front. And when I asked Wilks about it last year, he's like, no, I dial up all the games up front. And I thought the games that they played up front this year were not nearly as effective. So maybe that was not a strength of his game as a coordinator. I don't know. But I mean, I couldn't help but notice that it didn't seem like when they played stunting games this year that it was nearly as effective as it was in the past.